When your home becomes your deadliest enemy, who will save you? This night was supposed to be peaceful, but it turned into a nightmare that exposed what no one wanted to see. It began with something so ordinary, it almost hurts to admit, a warm Thursday evening, the kind where you let your guard down. Martha fussed with her casserole in the cluttered kitchen, humming some half-forgotten tune, pausing every so often to wipe flour from her hands and shoo away the dog, Duke, who hovered near the baby's high chair with the dedication of a four-legged butler. Her husband, Dave, was in the garage, cursing under his breath at a rusted wrench. Their daughter, Abby, a pudgy toddler with fists like little dough balls, squealed each time Duke wagged his tail or dropped a sticky chew toy at her feet. Domestic bliss with a thin coat of dust and the smell of onions. If only it could be stayed that way. The first injustice? It wasn't the gas, no. It was the silence before, the kind that comes when you know you should say something but swallow it instead. Marta, exhausted from David's late nights and longer excuses, had spent the morning searching the basement for old baby clothes to give away, and found instead a locked metal box with her name scrawled on the side in her father's jagged script. She asked Dave if he knew anything about it. He grunted, didn't they look her in the eyes? Your dad kept all sorts of junk, he said, turning up the game on the TV. She dropped it. That was her first mistake. Later, as dusk stretched over the yard, Dave stomped through the kitchen, muttering about the furnace. Smells off, he said, but probably nothing, just the filter. Marta rolled her eyes, but Duke was already uneasy, pawing at the basement door. Abby giggled, mimicking the dog's whimper, not understanding the warning in his eyes. As the family settled for dinner, no one noticed the faintest below. The kind that means everything and nothing, until it's too late. The baby was the first to cough, a soft wet hack that made Martha glance over, worried. The casserole burned. David muttered again. Marta snapped at him, Duke barked, Abby cried, and in those seconds of chaos, the scent became a presence, a sour, chemical fog that pressed against the walls. Duke jumped up, barking like a dog possessed, nudging Abby's high chair so hard it almost toppled. What the? Get the dog away from her. Dave barked, but then the baby's eyes fluttered, and Martha saw, really saw, the bluish tinge at the corners of her lips. That was when Duke lunged, grabbing Abby's blanket with his teeth, dragging her from the table as if she weighed nothing. In the panic, yelling, crashing dishes, Martha choking on the thickening air, no one thought about the locked box, or the secrets hiding inside it. They just wanted to breathe. To be continued. What Duke does next will make you question who's really watching over your family. Don't miss the unraveling of a night that refuses to end. When a dog drags your baby from the dinner table, you're not thinking hero, you're thinking madness. But what if madness is the only thing that can save you? The kitchen, so warm moments ago, had turned into a trap. The gas was everywhere now, heavy and invisible, seeping into their lungs. Marta staggered after Duke, eyes watering, mouth open, but no air seemed to reach her. David, always slow to act until the worst had already happened, grabbed his phone, cursing at the damn signal as if that was the real problem. Duke had Abby clutched in her baby blanket, dragging her toward the back door. The child's cry was thin, she sounded more like a kitten than a toddler, a little shudder in her lungs. Marta's own breath caught, panic rising in her chest. David shouted, "It's hurting her." Grab the dog, but his voice was little more than a cough now. Is staggered, tried to yank the baby free, but Duke snapped, a deep, warning growl no one had ever heard before. For a second, the world seemed to freeze, Dave, shocked into stillness, Martha trembling, Abby gasping. Ducas has locked on the door. Somewhere behind them, a window shattered. Maybe it was the pressure. Maybe it was Marta's elbow, flailing in desperation. Air rushed in, mixing with the toxic fog, and Martha realized she had to trust the dog. It was the only thing left. She pushed past Dave, grabbed the handle, flung the door wide. Cold air slapped her face. Duque, seeing the way open, bolted into the yard, Abby still tangled in the blanket. Marta fell to her knees on the grass, sucking in air, coughing so hard she saw spots. David collapsed beside her, staring at the dog in disbelief. That mutt, he could have killed her, he rasped. Marta just shook her head. She didn't they have words, only fear, and a strange, angry gratitude. That's when the neighbors started to shout. The night erupted in sirens, in questions, in hands grabbing shoulders and mouths mouthing things Martha couldn't they hear. It wasn't there until the paramedics carried Abby away, until the baby coughed and started to wail in full, healthy terror, that Martha broke. She sobbed into Duque's fur, clutching the dog like a lifeline, while Dave tried to explain, to anyone who they listen, how the furnace just went out. It was a freak accident. No one believed him. Marta barely believed it herself. But as they wheeled Abby away, a police officer approached with something in his hand, a key, tarnished and familiar. We found this near the furnace, he said quietly. It has your initials, MRS, Quark. Marta's hands shook as she took it. The box. The secrets. The dog had saved Abby from the gas, but what about the poison eating away at this family, long before the leak? The true danger isn't always what you can smell or see. Stay with us, because next comes the part where everything you trust is called into question. But's worse, surviving the gas, or discovering that it wasn't an accident at all. The real story starts when the smoke clears. The hospital was cold, sterile, a world away from the chaos of the house. Abby slept under a plastic dome, wires glued to her chest. Marta watched every rise and fall of her tiny ribs, counting each breath as if her own life depended on it. Dave lingered in the hall, talking to the fire chief, a little too loud, a little too defensive. Duke wasn't allowed inside, so he lay in the parking lot, tethered to a bench, nose pressed to the door. Every time a nurse walked past, he thumped his tail, hopeful, waiting for a sign that his family would return to him. But Martha couldn't focus on any of it, not while the key burned in her pocket. After an eternity, or maybe an hour, time had lost all meaning. She made her way home, the ambulance long gone, the street outside taped off and swarming with uniforms. A detective met her at the door. MRS, Clark? I need to ask you a few questions about your furnace. Marta felt like laughing, hard, brittle laughter that would crack her in two. Instead, she nodded, clutching the key so tight it left marks on her palm. Inside, the kitchen was a war zone, dishes scattered, chairs overturned, the casserole congealed on the floor. She picked her way through the mess, searching for the box they found in the basement. There it was, right where she left it, unassuming, a little rusty, nothing special. She slipped the key into the lock. It clicked open on the first try. Inside were papers, yellowed and brittle. Old receipts, letters, one from her father, dated years before he died. She read the words once, then again, her hands trembling. Marta. If you're reading this, something has gone wrong. There is money in the furnace, hidden in the vent. Don't trust Dave. Her stomach turned to ice. The detective's voice echoed from the doorway. Ma'am? Is there anything you want to tell us? Marta closed the box. She thought of Duke, of Abby, of Dave's hands fiddling with the furnace for weeks, the late-night calls, the sudden arguments over bills and repairs. She thought of her own silence, her fear of making things worse. The real gas wasn't what almost killed them. It was what they'd been breathing for years, mistrust, half-truths, quiet desperation. And now, with everything exposed to the open air, Martha had a choice: keep running, or finally confront the poison. Do you think the gas was the worst part? Wait until you see what happens when a family's secrets come out. The next chapter will change how you see everyone in this house. How do you confront the man you once trusted with your life, when the evidence says he nearly took it? The next move might save a life, or destroy the family for good. The night stretched on, sleepless and raw. Martha barely heard the detective's questions. The letter burned in her mind: don't trust Dave. She kept seeing Duke's eyes, the urgency, the way he had known before any of them. If only she'd listened sooner. She spent the next hours in a daze, moving through the wreckage of their home. The kitchen reeked of gas, bleach, something else she couldn't name, a residue of fear. Dave wasn't home when she returned. Supposedly at the hospital, checking on Abby. Supposedly. By morning, the police tape was still fluttering in the wind. Martha sat at the table, Duke's big head resting in her lap, the box of secrets open in front of her. There were more letters, receipts for repairs Dave claimed to have made, but the dates didn't add up. A notarized document showing her father's will, altered in shaky handwriting. A receipt for a cash withdrawal just before the fire, signed by Dave. She felt sick. All these years, every little slight, every slammed door, every "you're just tired, Marta," it all pressed down on her, as heavy as the gas that almost killed them. Why hadn't she seen it before? A knock at the door. She jumped, heart racing, but it was only the neighbor, Mrs. Keller, clutching a thermos and her own little dog. "Heard about the accident," she said, eyes darting around. "You poor thing. Is it true your husband's in trouble with the police?" Marta bristled, but she forced a polite smile. "Just a misunderstanding." Mrs. Heller leaned in, voice low. "You know, my kid always said your Dave was, well, never mind. If you need help, Marta, you just say so." Help? What did that even mean now? Marta's anger flared, a wild, almost joyful thing. For years they played nice, kept her head down. No more. Duke whined, sensing her agitation. She knelt and hugged him, burying her face in his fur. "Good boy," she whispered. "You're the only one who ever told the truth." Dave finally returned that afternoon, face drawn, stubble bristling. "Where were you?" Marta demanded, voice stronger than she felt. Distracted, too casual. "At the hospital." They had questions. "And what did you tell them?" "That it was an accident. Same as everyone else." But Martha saw the fear in his eyes. The next move was hers. "Do you think confrontation is the hardest part?" "The real test is what happens after the truth comes out, when everyone has something to lose." Stay close. The cracks are just starting to show. If you could expose your spouse's darkest secret, would you do it, even if it meant burning your own world to the ground? Sometimes, survival means lighting the match yourself. The hours crawled by. Abby was stable at the hospital, doctors marveling at her miraculous rescue. Martha called twice, just to hear her baby's breathing, to remind herself that Duque's instincts had saved them both. But at home, the tension built like a storm. Dave avoided Martha's gaze, pacing from room to room, barking at Duke whenever he came too close. He called his brother, whispered fiercely in the hallway. Martha heard snatches. "They're digging, won't they find anything? Tell Mom not to call." The detective returned. This time, she asked Martha about the will, the altered dates, the cash withdrawal. Martha showed her the box, the letters, the evidence her father had left behind like breadcrumbs. The detective's face hardened as she listened. "Did you know about the repairs to the furnace, Mr. Clark?" she asked when Dave came in. He blustered, but Martha saw his hands shaking. "I did what I could." The old man never maintained anything, and, his voice faltered. "It was an accident." Martha wanted to scream. Instead, she looked at the detective, then at Duke, loyal even now. "There is more," Martha said quietly. "My father warned me, but I was too afraid to listen." Davy snapped. "You don't know what you're talking about." But the detective did. She took notes, asked questions, gathered evidence. Dave grew more frantic, passing, sweating, voice rising. The first arrest came that night. Dave, handcuffed, shouting that Martha was framing him, that says just bitter, just wants the house. Martha watched from the porch, numb, Duke pressed against her legs. The neighbors gathered, whispers flying, Mrs. Heller watching with something like grim satisfaction. Inside, alone for the first time in years, Martha sat at the kitchen table, letters spread before her. She should have felt relief. Instead, she felt empty, a vast ache where her marriage had been. She picked up Abby's favorite toy, a battered stuffed rabbit, and wept. When justice comes, it doesn't bring peace. The real reckoning comes in the silence that follows. What Martha finds next will change everything, again. Don't look away. What if the price of truth is everything you once loved? In the ruins of old lies, can a family build something new, or are some wounds too deep to heal? The news traveled fast. Local father arrested after near-fatal gas leak. Martha's phone buzzed constantly, calls from her sister, from old friends, even from David's mother, who left a voicemail dripping with accusation. "How could you do this to him?" "Todo ese?" Duke stayed by her side, his calm presence anchoring her to the moment. Abby would be home in 2 days, the doctors said, thanks to an extraordinary pet rescue. They wanted to run a story on Duke, the hero dog. Martha almost laughed. How strange, to have her private pain become public celebration. But nothing felt like victory. She spent the next day sorting through her father's old papers, piecing together the map of her own denial. There were debts she ignored, repairs left half-finished, apologies never spoken. And everywhere, hints of David's hand, withdrawals, receipts, insurance claims filed quietly and never mentioned. She wondered what else she didn't know. A letter from her father caught her eye, addressed to Abby. It was short, written in a trembling script. "You are braver than you know. Never forget the dog who saved you." Martha cried then, for all the years she'd missed the signs, for all the times they made excuses. The house was quiet, almost peaceful, until the doorbell rang. Martha opened the door to find David's brother, Alan, standing awkwardly on the step. "'Sis lying," he blurted. "Dave never meant to hurt anyone. He needed money. The furnace, he was trying to fix it himself." Martha listened, feeling both anger and a tired kind of forgiveness. "Tell the truth, Alan. To the police, to your family. That's the only thing left." Alan nodded, eyes full of shame. "Ye try." That night, Martha finally slept. In the darkness, Duke pressed close, his breathing steady, a promise that not all loyalty is wasted. Forgiveness doesn't come easy, and tomorrow brings its own reckoning. Will Martha let her past define her, or is it time to choose a different ending? The final act is still to come. When the world sees you as a survivor, but inside you're barely holding on, what does it take to start again? Sometimes, the hardest battle is the one you fight with yourself. The media storm hit with full force. Hero dog saves baby, mother uncovers husband's betrayal. Reporters knocked, neighbors whispered, and Marta's kitchen became a place of pilgrimage for well-wishers and rubberneckers alike. Abby returned home, pale but smiling, clutching Duke's fur as if he were a shield. Marta wrapped her in a hug so fierce Abby squealed, giggling for the first time in days. The doctors said they have no lasting effects, the real wounds were invisible. Marta gave the interviews. She let them take Duke's picture, nodded gravely at the praise, but inside she felt as fragile as cracked porcelain. The insurance company called. There would be money, they said. Enough to repair the house. Enough to start over. But how do you start over when every room is haunted? Each broken tile and scorched pan whispered of betrayal, of years spent pretending. She sat at the kitchen table, watching Abby play with Duke, and wondered if she could ever trust her own judgment again. Her sister offered to let them stay a while. "You need space, Mar. You can't do this alone." But she could. She had to. That night, Martha wrote a letter to Dave, her words sharp but honest. "I'm not angry anymore," she wrote. "I'm free." She left the past on the table, every letter, every lie, every faded photograph. In the morning, she packed Abby's things, tucked Duke into the back seat, and drove away from the house that had nearly killed her. Starting over isn't the end. It's just another chapter. But what Martha finds in her new life will test everything she's learned. Are you ready for the final truth? What would you do if you got a second chance, one that cost you everything you thought you wanted? The true ending is never what you expect. A small apartment, 3 floors up, sunlight streaming through clean windows. Marta found herself breathing easier, really breathing, for the first time in years. Abby thrived in her new preschool. Duke made friends with every child in the building. The future was uncertain, but not poisoned. The letters stayed locked in a drawer. Sometimes, late at night, Martha would take them out and reread her father's last words, feeling the ache of lost time but also the relief of truth. David's trial was quiet, the headlines fading fast in a world hungry for new tragedies. Martha didn't testify, she let the evidence speak for itself. She received a letter from him, full of blame, then regret, then nothing at all. In the months that followed, Martha built something new, not just for Abby, but for herself. She joined a support group for survivors, started volunteering at a local shelter. She learned to trust again, slowly, imperfectly. Duke became a local legend, the hero dog with soulful eyes, and Abby's constant companion. One evening, as the city lights flickered on, Martha took Abby and Duke to the park. Abby ran ahead, laughing, Duke chasing her, the two of them outlined in gold by the setting sun. Martha watched them, tears in her eyes, not of sadness, but of fierce, unexpected joy. She whispered a thank you to the sky, to her father, to Duke, to her own battered heart. Because sometimes, the poison is what you leave behind. And sometimes, the rescue comes from the place you least expect. That's not the end, just the beginning. And you'll never forget the night the dog saved more than a life.